I've built my architecture firm from the ground up. No inheritance. No safety net. No rich parents writing checks behind the scenes. Just me, a drafting table in a one-bedroom apartment, and a stubborn belief that I could design spaces that actually meant something. 3 national awards later, people like to call me visionary. But the truth? I'm just observant. I notice hairline cracks before buildings collapse. I see stress points long before steel begins to warp. Patterns reveal themselves to me. Chaos speaks. Which is why, standing in the marble hallway of the Grand Meridian Hotel on a random Tuesday afternoon, I noticed something most people would have missed. 2 lines above my own name on the guest registry. Daniel Harper, room 618. My husband. 40 miles from our house. In a hotel. On the same day he told me he was driving 2 hours north to visit his mother. My heartbeat didn't spike. It never does in a crisis. That's the thing about me, I go cold. Focused. Precise. I took the elevator to the 6th floor. The ride felt strangely quiet, like the world itself was holding its breath. Daniel had kissed me goodbye at 8:30 that morning. Coffee in one hand. Travel bag in the other. I'll be back late, he'd said. Mom's not feeling great. He'd even smiled. Room 618 was at the end of the hall. I knocked. Once. Twice. The door opened. And there he was. Shirtless. Hair damp. A woman's perfume lingering in the air behind him. For 3 full seconds neither of us spoke. His face drained of color. Claire, he breathed. I had a client meeting downstairs, I said evenly. Funny running into you. He stepped backward without realizing it, letting me into the room. King-sized bed. Sheets twisted. 2 wine glasses on the nightstand. One still beaded with condensation. Bathroom fan humming. Steam slipping under the door. My eyes moved slowly, cataloging details the way I would on a construction site. 2 towels. Both wet. A woman's heels near the dresser. And then, a soft click. The bathroom door locking from the inside. Someone was in there. Hiding. I looked at Daniel. Who is it? His jaw tightened. Not anger. Not even guilt. Fear. Claire, please. Let me explain first. If I open that door, I said quietly, what changes? He hesitated. Everything. Not our marriage ends. Not you'll hate me. Everything. That word echoed in my mind. This wasn't just an affair. This was something bigger. How long? I asked. His eyes flickered. Claire. How long, Daniel? He swallowed. 3 years. 3 years. I felt something inside my chest turn to ice. 3 years of late-night business trips. 3 years of him holding me while I fell asleep. 3 years of anniversaries and vacations and whispered I love yous. Who is she? I asked. His voice barely carried. Someone you know. My stomach tightened. Open the door, I said. No. I walked past him anyway and gripped the handle. Locked. Open it, I said louder. Or I call hotel security. Silence. Then, a voice from inside. Soft. Familiar. Claire, don't. My blood went still. I knew that voice. But that was impossible. Open the door, I whispered. The lock turned. The door creaked open. And standing there, alive, breathing, very much not dead, was Marcus Reed, my former business partner, my best friend, the man whose funeral I had organized 2 years ago, the man whose coffin I had stood beside while giving a eulogy through tears. Marcus, who supposedly died in a car accident on Highway 9. The car that went off a cliff. The explosion. The dental records confirming identity. Closed casket. I stared at him. Thinner. A beard now. But unmistakable. Surprise, he said weakly. The room tilted slightly but I didn't move. Didn't blink. You faked your death, I said. It wasn't a question. Marcus looked at Daniel. Then back at me. I had no choice. Oh, I'm sure you'll try to convince me of that. He stepped forward slowly. I owed money. A lot. To the wrong people. They were going to kill me. How much? $500,000. And the $2 million life insurance policy? I asked. Silence. Daniel looked away. Of course. The keyman clause on our firm. The payout after Marcus died. The money that kept the company stable. The money I thought was tragedy's only mercy. You stole it, I said quietly. Marcus exhaled. I needed to disappear. I turned to Daniel. And you knew. He didn't deny it. He came to me the night before the accident, Daniel said. He was desperate. I couldn't let him die. So instead, I said, my voice razor thin, you let me grieve. Neither of them spoke. And the affair? I asked. Marcus closed his eyes. Daniel answered. It started before the accident. Of course it did. I laughed. A soft, humorless sound. Let me guess, I said. He fakes his death. Collects insurance. Pays off the debt. You stay with me. Play the supportive husband. Wait for things to cool down. Then divorce me, take half, disappear to wherever he's hiding. Their silence confirmed everything. Mexico, I would later learn. Different name. Different life. But in that moment all I felt was clarity. Structures collapse when pressure exceeds integrity. My marriage had no integrity left. I looked at both of them. You made one mistake. Marcus frowned. What? You underestimated me. And in that instant I wasn't the grieving widow. Or the betrayed wife. I was the architect again. And I had just identified the load-bearing weakness that would bring their entire world crashing down. I stepped back, letting the weight of my gaze settle on them both. Marcus, my so-called dead best friend, and Daniel, the man who swore he loved me. Betrayal had a shape now, and it was right in front of me. I could almost hear the hum of the hotel carpet beneath our feet, the faint rattle of the city outside, but nothing else existed in that moment except the three of us and the unraveling truth. Listen carefully, I said, my voice low, deliberate. I'm not here to scream. I'm not here to cry. I'm here to understand why you both thought this was acceptable. My hands unconsciously traced the edge of the desk, grounding myself. And to make sure neither of you walks away from this clean. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Claire, Save it, I interrupted. I've been calm this entire time, haven't I? Calm enough to see details you thought I'd miss. Calm enough to notice every single slip, every single lie. You think that gives you leverage? It doesn't. It gives me the blueprint. Marcus flinched, running a hand through his beard. We didn't mean for you to get hurt. Didn't mean. I repeated, voice rising just slightly, cutting like a scalpel. Daniel, did you mean for me to think my best friend was dead? For 3 years. Did you consider how it would feel to go to the funeral, to stand there while you smiled at me, pretending you were broken too? Marcus, did you plan on me ever finding out? I paused, letting the silence stretch. As if so, congratulations. You've both failed spectacularly. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. Marcus shifted uncomfortably on the bed. Neither of them spoke. 3 years, I whispered. 3 years of planning, scheming, and lying. And for what? $500,000? Security? Passion? You think love and greed are interchangeable? My eyes burned. They aren't. They're different currencies entirely. Marcus finally looked at me. Claire, it wasn't supposed to be like this. Kennedy, Thomas Kennedy, I don't care about Kennedy right now, I said sharply. What I care about is the fact that you put me at the center of a lie so big, it could have destroyed me. And the affair, Daniel? That was the cherry on top. Did you ever consider what it would do to me emotionally? Did that thought ever cross your mind? Daniel's face hardened. We were in a situation we couldn't control. We were. You were selfish, I cut in. That's what you were. Selfish and reckless. And now I get to be the one who controls the outcome. My hands clenched into fists. But not because I want revenge. Not because I want to hurt you. No. Because I'm smart enough to turn your own mistakes into leverage. I walked over to the window, staring out at the city below. The skyline was bright, vibrant. And yet I felt the cold clarity of my next move sharpening inside me. Every detail I had observed, every inconsistency, every hotel receipt, every whisper of evidence over the past 3 years. It all added up. And now it was mine to use. I want this to be simple, I said, spinning back to face them. Marcus, you're going to surrender. Voluntarily. You're going to tell the FBI everything about Kennedy, every single illegal deal, every person involved. You'll plead guilty to fraud, yes, but you cooperate fully. You give them everything, and I guarantee your sentence will be lighter than you imagine. He blinked rapidly. 7 to 10 years. I can't. You will, I said, voice unwavering. Because otherwise, the life you've been running from will catch up to you. Kennedy's network is ruthless. And you're not clever enough to hide forever. I know you. You make mistakes. Sloppy mistakes. And they always find people like you eventually. I turned to Daniel. And you? You're signing divorce papers quietly. No alimony battles. No fights over assets. You keep what's yours. But you are done with me completely. And every confession you've been hiding about your involvement with Marcus? It's going to my lawyer. Until you cause trouble. Then every single lie will be exposed. Daniel swallowed hard. He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. Marcus was pale, staring at me as if he were trying to memorize every move I made. Every calm, precise word. Do you understand what's happening? I asked. I'm giving you a path out. But only because I'm not stupid. Because if I were, I'd make a phone call right now and you'd spend the rest of your lives running or rotting in prison. Instead, I'm offering survival, but only if you follow instructions to the letter. Silence. Then Marcus whispered, Why are you giving us this chance? I smiled thinly. Because I'm in control. And because the only satisfaction I need is knowing justice is served. That you two don't walk away like nothing happened. That's enough for me. Daniel shivered. And if we refuse? You won't, I said. Because I have all the evidence. Every hotel stay, every wire transfer, every lie. I've been methodical just like I always am. This room is your reckoning. Every detail matters. I stepped back, letting my words sink in. The air was thick with tension, suffocating. Marcus's shoulders slumped, Daniel's jaw set. They were trapped, not physically but by the truth, by my understanding of their web of deceit. And for the first time in 3 years I felt something shift inside me. Not revenge, not hatred, but power. The kind of power that comes from knowing exactly how every piece fits. The kind of power that comes from seeing through deception and holding the blueprint in your hands. This was my domain. And they were finally within it. I sat down on the edge of the unmade bed, my gaze fixed on Marcus and Daniel. Every breath they took felt like a confession in itself. I didn't flinch. I didn't soften. I had worked too hard, built too much to let sentiment cloud my judgment now. Marcus rubbed his temples, like the weight of his past life was finally pressing down. Claire, you don't understand. Kennedy's people, they'd kill me if they knew I was alive. I leaned forward, voice calm, almost clinical. And you expect me to care? You faked your death, stole millions, and slept with my husband while I mourned you. I think it's safe to say you've already demonstrated your priorities. Daniel's face twisted in guilt. It wasn't supposed to hurt you like this. I shook my head. It was supposed to hurt me. That's the point. You two made choices without considering me at all. That's why you're trapped here right now. Because someone has to make sure consequences exist. Someone has to be the adult in the room. Marcus's voice cracked. We can fix this. We just need. No, I interrupted, sharper this time. There's no fixing what you broke. You can only mitigate it. You can't erase the past 3 years, Marcus. You can't pretend I didn't cry myself to sleep thinking you were dead. You can't pretend Daniel wasn't complicit. You can only survive. And I can help you survive, but only if you do exactly as I say. Daniel swallowed hard, his hands clenched into fists. And if we don't? You'll regret it for the rest of your lives, I said, my tone icy. Because I have everything I need to ensure you don't walk away unscathed. Every hotel, every cash payment, every transaction, every lie. You've built a house of cards and I hold the blueprint for demolition. Marcus leaned back against the headboard, exhaling slowly. You're terrifying. I smiled faintly. Not terrifying. Calculated. Precise. Observant. I notice everything that others miss. And now I notice you too. And I know what you've done. Daniel's voice was quiet, almost defeated. Claire, what do you want from us? I tilted my head, letting him feel the weight of my gaze. I want justice. Not revenge. I want accountability. I want Marcus to face the FBI, to confess the fraud, to return what he can. I want Daniel to step away quietly without claiming what isn't his. I want the truth documented, sealed, undeniable. And I want both of you out of my life completely. Marcus's lips trembled. And you think we'll agree? I don't think, I said. I know. Because I'm offering a choice they cannot refuse. Cooperate, survive, and live with the consequences in a controlled way. Or resist and risk everything unraveling at once. You've spent 3 years running. You're both exhausted. You're trapped. This is your only path forward. Daniel's hands dropped to his sides. Marcus's shoulders slumped. I could see the calculation behind their fear. Both of them weighed the options. And both of them knew, deep down, I held all the leverage. I stood and walked over to the window, looking out at the city skyline as the afternoon sun reflected off the glass. I'm giving you 2 hours to think about it. 2 hours to prepare to cooperate. After that, we have a conversation. And I make the calls necessary to ensure justice is served. Understand? Yes, they both muttered, voices barely audible. Good. I turned, letting my words linger in the room. Marcus, gather your things. Daniel, make sure your accounts are ready. Because when this is over, there's no going back. No pretending. No hiding. You made choices and now you'll live with them, or you'll pay far more than you ever imagined. They nodded again, eyes wide but silent. The air between us was taut like steel beams about to buckle under weight. Every second I waited, I mentally catalogued everything I had observed. Every lie, every inconsistency, every secret transaction. It was like standing in a structure I had built myself. Except this one was full of cracks and I was holding the demolition plan. I left the room. The hallway felt colder than when I arrived. Outside, the city carried on, oblivious. People went about their lives. But I carried the gravity of betrayal, of lies, of power, because I was about to change everything. I walked to the hotel bar and ordered a single whiskey. My hand trembled slightly, not from fear but from anticipation. I needed information. Hard facts. Evidence. Leverage. I dialed Clarence Atkinson, my private investigator. Former FBI. Thorough. Discreet. Reliable. Clarence, I said as soon as he answered. I need everything you can find on Thomas Kennedy's cooperation with the FBI. No. Specifically, anything that mentions Marcus Reed. Claire. His voice was cautious. That's sealed federal material. You sure? I don't have time for caution, I cut him off. I'll triple your usual rate. 2 hours. That's all I need. He hesitated, then replied, 2 hours. I'll get you everything I can. I hung up. 1 call down, 2 more to go. I was assembling my tools, my ammunition, preparing for the confrontation that would decide the fates of both Marcus and Daniel. I sat back, sipping my whiskey, letting the warmth spread. Calm, precise, observant. Everything else would follow. Because I had already won in the only way that mattered. I had the plan. I had the truth. And now it was only a matter of execution. 2 hours later, I returned to room 618. My heels clicked softly against the polished floor, each step measured, deliberate. I didn't rush. I wanted them to feel the weight of what was coming. The door opened and there they were. Marcus sat on the bed like a cornered animal, hunched over, trying to shrink into himself. Daniel leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face pale, jaw tight. Both were fully aware I held the power now. I stepped in and closed the door quietly behind me. I perched on the edge of the desk chair, pulling out my notebook. Every note I had painstakingly gathered over the past 2 hours was there. Hotel logs, transactions, travel records, FBI press releases. Each piece built a chain of evidence that neither Marcus nor Daniel could deny. I looked at them, letting the silence stretch. Their nerves were exposed and I let them stew in it. Then I began slowly, deliberately. Marcus Reed, I said, you are currently wanted by the FBI. There's an active warrant for your arrest. Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, faking your death. Everything. He froze, pale as chalk. I thought. You thought what? I asked, my voice calm but deadly. That 2 years of careful planning would protect you? That Daniel could protect you? That I wouldn't notice every discrepancy, every pattern, every single lie? Daniel's lips parted like he wanted to speak but couldn't. The FBI knows about Kennedy's cooperation, I continued, flipping through the pages of my notes. They have your name, Marcus. Number 7 on the list. They've been investigating you for months. Every hotel visit, every wire transfer, every cash payment, they're all on record. Do you understand the gravity of this? His voice cracked. I don't have that kind of money. You don't, I said. Which means you're trapped. And you've underestimated me. I have the records. I have the contacts. And I've built a path for you to survive, but only if you follow it. Fully. Without hesitation. Marcus's hands trembled. Daniel's jaw clenched. I leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice softening just slightly. I'm offering a choice. You surrender. Cooperate. Confess. Help the authorities dismantle Kennedy's network. You serve your time, yes, but you live. You don't run anymore. You don't hide. You face reality and you survive. Marcus's head dropped, his voice barely a whisper. And if I refuse? I exhaled, slow and deliberate. Then you risk everything. Prison. Retribution from Kennedy's associates. The insurance companies coming after every penny you stole. And Daniel, you will be exposed too. Your complicity, your affair, your silence. Everything. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. The tension was suffocating. I could see the fear, the regret, the realization in their eyes. And I let them feel it. Let them understand the weight of their choices. Daniel, I said finally, turning my gaze to him. You're done here. Quiet divorce. No alimony disputes. Your assets, your accounts. Fine. But you step away. Completely. No contact. No excuses. You've been complicit, yes, but your cooperation in this moment can limit the fallout. That's all you get. He nodded slowly. His face was pale, but there was resignation there too. And Marcus, I said, voice firm, unwavering, you'll be cooperating fully. Every detail. Every transaction. Every person you've encountered in Kennedy's network. Nothing left out. This is your chance to survive. Ignore it and you're done. You know the stakes. You've been running for 3 years. You've been living a lie. Now it ends. Marcus lifted his head, meeting my gaze. For a moment I saw the desperation, the pleading, the faint flicker of hope. I smiled thinly because I knew this was the only way he could survive. Only if he listened. Only if he followed instructions to the letter. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling Special Agent Lonnie Leonard in 10 minutes. He's heading the Kennedy investigation. Marcus, you surrender voluntarily. Or this becomes a federal case with you as a fugitive. The choice is yours. And Daniel, make sure your part is done before we proceed. Marcus and Daniel exchanged a glance. Silent communication. Fear. Realization. And then acceptance. You're serious, Marcus whispered. Deadly serious, I said. I stood, pacing slowly, my heels making soft echoes. You built your lives on lies. You built your protection on deception. But structures fail when their foundation is rotten. And yours is rotten. You've been operating on assumptions that I wouldn't notice. That I wouldn't act. I have. And now you follow my plan or you collapse under the weight of your choices. Daniel swallowed, shoulders slumping. Marcus exhaled, shaking slightly. The silence was thick, heavy, suffocating, but for the first time I felt a small sense of calm. I was in control. I had assessed the weaknesses. I had built the plan. I had seen the structure of their deceit. And now it was time to bring it down, carefully, precisely, and without getting a scratch myself. Because I didn't need revenge. I needed justice. And that was exactly what I was going to deliver. 10 minutes later my phone buzzed with a text. All set. Clarence has compiled everything you asked for. 2 hours of intel. FBI, Kennedy, Marcus. Everything. I pocketed the phone and took a deep breath. My pulse was steady. My mind, as always, was 3 steps ahead. I walked back toward room 618. The hallway felt different this time. Heavy. Silent. The kind of quiet that swallows you whole before the storm hits. I reached the door and paused, letting my presence announce itself. I knocked firmly, a single sharp rap, then waited. The door opened and I stepped inside. Marcus was sitting rigidly on the edge of the bed, hands fidgeting. Daniel was standing near the window, arms crossed, trying to look composed, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the slight tremor in his fingers. I placed my phone on the desk and opened the file Clarence had sent. I spread the documents across the surface like laying out blueprints. Everything you've done is here. Hotels. Transfers. Meetings. Every single lie you've told me documented. You've been meticulous, yes, but not meticulous enough. Marcus swallowed audibly. Claire, we can fix this. I can. You can survive, I said, interrupting him, voice ice. If you do exactly as I say. Otherwise, every mistake you've ever made becomes evidence, undeniable, uncontrollable, and deadly for both of you. Daniel flinched. His eyes flicked to Marcus. Marcus's face was pale. The shift in power was absolute. I tapped on my phone and pulled up a screen with Kennedy's federal case files, cross-referenced with Marcus's transactions. The FBI has an active warrant for you, Marcus. Number 7 on Kennedy's list. Insurance fraud, conspiracy, faking your death. All of it. They've been investigating for months. You are not invisible. And the longer you hesitate, the worse it gets. Marcus's hand shook slightly. And Daniel, he's involved too? Yes, I said flatly. He's been complicit. Not as deeply, but enough that silence becomes dangerous. You've both underestimated me for 3 years. That stops today. Daniel's face went pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I let the silence linger. The weight of it was suffocating. Here's what happens next, I said, flipping through the notes. Marcus, you surrender. Voluntarily. You tell the FBI everything you know about Kennedy's network. Every deal. Every person. Every location. You plead guilty to fraud, yes, but your cooperation ensures your sentence is reduced. Probably 7 to 10 years instead of 20. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. And if I refuse? You don't want to find out, I said quietly. The insurance companies will come after you. Kennedy's associates will hunt you. And the FBI will not look kindly on a fugitive who has already committed fraud. Your options are simple. Cooperate and survive, or resist and collapse under the weight of your lies. The choice is yours. I turned to Daniel. And you? Quiet divorce. You get your personal accounts. No alimony. No disputes. You step away entirely. And the confessions Marcus needs to make about your involvement? They go to my lawyer. So, if you cause trouble, I release them. That's your choice. Daniel's jaw clenched. He nodded slowly. I understand. Good. I leaned closer to Marcus. You have 2 hours to prepare. Collect your things. Review the documents. Think carefully. As after that, the calls are made. You surrender willingly, or you don't survive this intact. He looked at me, fear and desperation in his eyes. Claire, you're ruthless. I'm methodical, I said. Ruthless implies emotion. I'm not emotional. I'm precise. Observant. Calculated. And I don't forgive betrayal. You two have tested my patience for 3 years. That's enough. Marcus exhaled shakily. Daniel swallowed. The air was thick with tension, but I didn't flinch. My mind was already racing through the next steps. Legal strategy, FBI coordination, handling the insurance fallout. Every angle calculated, every detail accounted for. I leaned back in the chair watching them. Think of this as the last opportunity to live. To salvage something. Because if you fail, there's nothing left. And I promise you I won't stop. The room was silent. They were trapped, cornered by their own decisions. And for the first time I felt the satisfaction of being in complete control. The architect of not just buildings but of consequences. Time ticked on. Outside, the city carried on, oblivious to the betrayal, the fear, the reckoning happening in room 618. But inside, a quiet war raged, and I was the strategist. And I was about to see it through to the very end. The clock ticked relentlessly toward the deadline I had given them. 2 hours of quiet, tense waiting. 2 hours of Marcus and Daniel sitting there, trapped in their own fear and regrets. And I stayed calm. Methodical. Observant. Like always. Finally, Marcus exhaled, a long, trembling sigh that sounded almost like a surrender before the words came out. I'll do it. I'll call the FBI. I'll cooperate. I'll take responsibility for everything. I nodded, letting him feel the gravity of his admission. Good. That's the first step toward survival. You know what to do. Make the call. Arrange your surrender. Be honest. Be complete. And Daniel, I turned to him, voice unwavering, measured. You finalize your accounts. Quiet divorce. No disputes. You remove yourself completely from my life. Do not test me. Daniel's face paled, but he nodded, voice tight. Understood. Marcus picked up the phone, hands shaking. His thumb hovered over the numbers for a moment, then he dialed. I watched as the tension in his body physically shifted, from panic to reluctant determination. FBI. Marcus Reed. he said, his voice quivering but clear. I'm turning myself in. Voluntarily. I have information about Thomas Kennedy and associated fraud. I want to cooperate fully. I felt a cold satisfaction in the pit of my stomach. One by one, the pieces of their carefully constructed lies were beginning to collapse. And this time they had no choice. No escape. While Marcus spoke on the phone, I took a moment to study Daniel. The man I had once loved, who had once called me his partner in life. His hands were clenched. His face pale. The affair, the deception, it had cost him his control. And now he was powerless. You know, I said softly, almost conversationally, you could have prevented this. All you had to do was tell me the truth. But instead you gambled with my life. With my trust. And now you're paying the price. Daniel's eyes flicked to mine. Guilt and fear mingled in the shadowed lines of his face. He said nothing. Marcus hung up. They're sending agents, he said quietly. I'll be taken into custody shortly. They want to review all the evidence I have first. Then they'll process me. Good, I said, voice controlled, almost clinical. Follow their instructions exactly. You cooperate fully. Every detail, every lie, every illegal deal. And remember, honesty now is your only way out. Marcus nodded, almost relieved to finally act. He turned to Daniel, hesitation in his eyes. I guess this is over for both of us. Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. It's over, he said quietly. I watched as Marcus gathered his few belongings, a suitcase he hadn't packed in years. The weight of 3 years of running, of deception, of living a lie, pressed down on him physically now. Every hotel receipt, every cash payment, every hidden meeting, it had caught up. And it would cost him. But at least he would survive, thanks to the plan I had orchestrated. The door opened and 2 federal agents stepped in. Their presence was authoritative, calm, professional. Marcus met them halfway, hands raised slightly, ready to surrender. I stayed back, observing. Every move, every reaction, every micro-expression. This was my design. My control. My justice. And it was unfolding exactly as I had intended. Marcus Reed, one of the agents asked. Yes, he said, voice firm now, steadying as he stepped toward them. You're under federal custody, the agent said. You'll cooperate fully, correct? I will, Marcus said. Everything. As they guided him out, I watched him look back once, eyes wide, filled with regret. I met his gaze briefly, letting him feel it. Calm, unflinching, the certainty that his freedom now depended on obedience. Then he was gone, escorted down the hallway. I turned slowly to Daniel. He was still near the window, hands trembling. Your part is done, I said softly. Now make sure you follow through. Divorce, assets, confession. No games. You understand? He nodded, the reality settling in. His mistakes, his choices, his betrayal, they were permanent. And unlike Marcus, he wasn't in federal custody. But the consequences were no less severe. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain slightly. One chapter was ending. One act of betrayal had been confronted. One consequence was underway. And now it was time to finalize everything. The confession, the divorce, and the truth that would ensure neither of them walked away unscathed. I sat back in the chair, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. 3 years of lies, of secrets, of betrayal, all had led to this moment. And I was still standing, unbroken, in control. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about consequence. And I had ensured both would be delivered, methodically, precisely, perfectly. The hotel room was empty now. Marcus was gone, escorted by federal agents, and Daniel had quietly gathered his things, preparing for the divorce and the final settlements I had instructed. The weight in the air had lifted slightly, but the emptiness left behind was palpable. 3 years of betrayal, of lies, of stolen trust had ended, and now only the aftermath remained. I stood by the window looking out at the city skyline. The sunlight reflected off the glass, warm and sharp, like clarity piercing through years of deception. I let myself breathe, let myself feel the faintest twinge of relief. I had been patient, observant, precise, and it had paid off. Daniel finally spoke, voice low, almost reluctant. Claire, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you this much. I turned slowly, looking at him. There was nothing left to soften me. Yes, you did. You just didn't mean to get caught. He flinched at my words, the truth cutting sharper than any anger could. Do you ever think you'll forgive me? I shook my head. Forgiveness isn't the point. You need consequences and you're going to live with them. That's justice. And that's enough. He nodded slowly, accepting it. There was no bitterness left in my voice, only the calm finality of someone who had taken control of a situation that could have destroyed her life. I'll do as you said. Quietly. Good, I said. That's the only way either of you survive this without further damage. Sign the papers, follow through on the confessions and walk away. That's your only path. Daniel left the room, silent, resigned. And I knew finally I was alone, but free. I sat on the edge of the unmade bed, letting the chaos of the past few hours settle into order in my mind. 3 years of lies, a faked death, stolen money, and an affair. It had all led to this moment of clarity. And I had acted precisely as I needed to, controlling the outcome, ensuring survival, and delivering consequences. I pulled out my phone and checked my messages. Clarence Atkinson had sent a simple text. Good work. You handled it perfectly. Let me know if you need anything else. I smiled faintly. Methodical, precise, observed. The work had been flawless. Another message from my lawyer, confirming the divorce papers had been prepared and the confession documents ready to sign. Everything I needed to close this chapter was in my hands. I packed a small bag for myself, not out of necessity but as a symbolic gesture. The old life, the life I had built with Daniel and with Marcus in my past, was over. A new chapter awaited, one where I could rebuild, refocus, and reclaim my agency. I walked out into the hotel lobby, the late afternoon sun striking the polished marble floors. People moved past, oblivious to the storm that had unfolded within room 618. Their normalcy was a stark contrast to the chaos I had dismantled with calm precision. And I realized for the first time in years I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. The betrayal had been sharp, painful, but it had revealed a truth I hadn't fully understood. My resilience. My capacity for control. My ability to act decisively, even when emotions threatened to cloud judgment. I had been tested and I had emerged stronger. 6 months later, I stood in front of a city council presenting plans for a large mixed-use development. My firm had grown, my reputation soared, and my personal life, while carefully guarded, was beginning to heal. I watched as council members listened, asked questions, and approved the project unanimously. This was my triumph. Not just professionally but personally. My phone buzzed during a break. An unknown number. I'm sorry for everything. I smiled faintly, then deleted it without replying. Some bridges once burned should remain ash. Mercy had been granted once. Now it was time to move forward. I stepped outside into the sunshine, inhaling deeply. The city smelled of possibility, of a future rebuilt on my terms. Betrayal had hurt, yes, but it had not broken me. I had faced lies, deception, and greed, and I had emerged intact. Stronger. Wiser. Unshakable. As I walked through the streets, my heels clicking against the pavement, I reflected on the lessons of the past months. Trust must be earned. Love requires truth. And sometimes the best justice is delivered not through rage, but through precision, planning, and living well. I had lost a husband, a friend, and illusions about the people I thought I knew. But I had gained clarity, control, and the confidence to build a life on my own terms. That, I realized, was worth everything. And so I moved forward. Not looking back. Not seeking revenge. But walking into a future I had designed, strong, free, and unbreakable. Because I had survived. I had conquered. And I had reclaimed my life.